Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving headfirst into Las Vegas. If you've ever planned a trip there, it's kind of weird. Half the stuff you read makes it sound like this amazing world-class entertainment capital, and the other half, it sounds exactly like your most nervous aunt warning you about, well, everything. Danger on every corner between the big casinos.
Yeah, that split view is really the perfect starting point, isn't it? You've got the shiny brochures on one side, and then you've got the less glamorous official crime reports on the other. So our mission for you, the listener, is to take all of that, the official LVMPD data, these really specific hotel safety indexes, scam reports, and basically give you a realistic safety briefing.
Right, we want to cut through both the hype and the scaremongering. Because here's the big picture right away. Yeah, Vegas crime rates are, statistically speaking, higher than the national average. But, and this is the key part, your actual safety really depends heavily on where you are and just, basic awareness. This isn't about being scared, it's about understanding the context.
Exactly. Context is everything here. Let's unpack that, starting with those citywide stats.
Okay, so let's hit the numbers. I've heard the overall picture isn't great compared to the rest of the U.S. Just how high are we talking?
Well, they are high. Simply put, the city's crime average is definitely up there compared to national numbers, especially property crime. For anyone wanting the specifics, the overall rate is about 3,434 crimes per 100,000 people. Violent crime sits at 516 per 100,000, and property crime, that's the big one, 2,918 per 100,000. All three of those are above both the Nevada state average and the U.S. average.
Okay, so those are big numbers, obviously driven by the sheer volume of people. But you said context matters. That high average must be skewed by certain areas, right? It can't be like that everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. Crime isn't spread out evenly across the whole county. Not at all, those high averages. They're mostly driven by what happens in the tourist areas, the Strip, downtown, and a few specific neighborhood hotspots. Like our sources point to places like the Cultural Corridor. Get this, it reports a violent crime rate 640% higher than the city average.
Wow, 640% higher. That really hammers home the point about not treating the whole city as one big risk zone. But what's interesting, even with those spikes, is that the data for 2025 seems to show things moving in the right direction. Are things actually trending a bit safer?
They are, yeah. And it suggests that maybe some of the interventions are actually working. The latest data shows a pretty clear downward trend. Homicides down over 30% compared to last year, property crime down 14%. Law enforcement seems to be actively trying things to keep that going.
Which brings us to that order out strategy. I found that really interesting. It's such a targeted approach. How exactly are the police trying to manage repeat offenders in those main tourist spots?
So the order out thing targets people who keep getting picked up for misdemeanors, stuff like battery, trespassing, disturbing the peace, that kind of thing. If they rack up enough of these, a judge can basically ban them or order them out from busy areas like Fremont Street or near the Strat for a while. It's a legal tool to try and remove that persistent low-level disruption from where tourists are concentrated.
And is it working? Have they seen fewer victims in those areas?
They have, actually. Metro Police reported about a 10% drop in crime victims in those specific zones since the policy started. It kind of suggests that going after that constant nuisance behavior, the stuff that makes people feel unsafe and maybe gives cover to other criminals, is actually helping chip away at the bigger crime picture.
Okay, so the big picture efforts seem to be having some effect. But you mentioned safety is hyper-local. What happens when we zoom right in, like down to the hotel level?
Right, that's where this hyper-local analysis comes in. It looks at crime within just a 300-meter radius that's like a couple of city blocks around the major resorts. On average, across the Strip, it works out to about 14.75 violent crimes per 1,000 visitors. But, the difference between hotels can be huge.
So what jumps out when you look at that hotel-specific safety index? Any surprises?
The biggest surprise, honestly. Circus. It's fascinating. Despite its reputation, being older, more budget-friendly, it actually comes out near the top as one of the safest properties. Its violent crime rate is way down at 2.39 per 1,000.
Hold on. Circus.
Yeah.
Really, that seems totally backwards compared to how people usually talk about it. What do the data suggest makes it safer, if it's not like brand new security systems or a super high price point?
It's probably a few things combined. The type of visitor it attracts more families, maybe fewer high-rolling gamblers who might be targets. Plus, their security might be more focused on just keeping non-guests out because they have so many kids around. Location might play a role, too. But yeah, it's a great example of how reputation doesn't always line up with the actual numbers.
That's a really good insight.
Yeah.
So besides the surprise winner, where else looks relatively safe, and where should people maybe be a bit more cautious?
Well, Resorts World, Luxor, and Fontainebleau also score well in the safe tier. Resorts World and Fontainebleau probably benefit from being newer and maybe a little less in the thick of the absolute busiest part of the strip. Luxor scores well too, likely because it's down at the southern end, so it probably gets less random foot traffic compared to the mid-strip hotels right in the chaos.
Okay, and what about the other end of the scale? Those places flagged as high risk. Where do we need to keep our guard up a bit more?
Yeah, you definitely need to be more aware around places like Treasure Island and Flamingo. Treasure Island especially had the highest nonviolent crime rate, like pickpocketing and theft. It was a staggering 952.86 per 1,000 visitors. That's almost 10 times higher than Circus Circus. It's very likely linked to just the sheer volume of people walking through that specific intersection and the walkways nearby. Creates a lot of opportunity, unfortunately.
Wow, that level of property crime is pretty intense. So what practical advice can people take away from this? How do you protect your stuff in those crowds?
First thing to remember, casino security is primarily there to protect the casino's money, not necessarily your wallet. That's just the reality. So, basic stuff, wallet in the front pocket, especially in super crowded spots like near the Bellagio fountains or on those pedestrian bridges. If you've got a bag when you sit down to eat or watch a show, keep it right between your feet, hooked on your leg if possible. Don't just sling it over the back of the chair.
And what about back in the hotel room? Especially if you had a lucky night at the blackjack table.
Use the room safe immediately. Don't leave cash just lying around, ever. And here's a specific tip that comes straight from police reports. Always physically check your door after you close it. Give the handle a jiggle. Apparently, thieves literally walk down hallways just pushing on doors hoping one didn't latch properly. It's disturbingly simple and common.
Okay, so that covers outright crime. But Vegas is also kind of infamous for its hustles.
Hmm.
Let's switch gears and talk about the big categories of scams people should watch out for.
Yeah, this is where you can lose money not through force, but through trickery. The first big category is what we can call illegal deception, basically. People selling fake stuff or trying to lure you into something dangerous using misleading language.
Right, the classic example being all the marijuana advertising right there on the strip.
Exactly. Nevada law actually says you can't sell marijuana within 1,500 feet of a casino. So any shop right on the Strip or Fremont aggressively pushing pre-rolls or edibles, they're using deceptive language. Those products do not have actual marijuana in them. They're basically banking on tourists being confused about the local laws to sell them overpriced non-cannabis stuff.
And we absolutely have to talk about the more dangerous conception, the aggressive solicitations, and potential prostitution setups.
Yeah, this is serious. Prostitution is completely illegal in Las Vegas itself, which is in Clark County. Those cards littered everywhere. Calling those numbers or responding to people who approach you aggressively often leads straight to getting robbed or even assaulted. The police confirm this happens, but it's underreported because, understandably, victims are often hesitant to come forward.
Okay, another one in this category. Fake casino chips and those street gambling games.
Simple rule. Never, ever buy casino chips from some random person outside the official casino cage. They will be fake and worthless. And if you see games like 3-Card Monte or those shell games set up on the sidewalk, just walk away. Don't even stop to watch. That excited crowd gathered around, they're usually in on the scam, creating distraction while the operator runs an unwinnable game.
All right, moving to the second category, financial exploitation. This is less about illegal acts and more about, let's say, legally sanctioned ways your money disappears. Often feels pretty scummy, though. Let's start with the price of bottled water.
Oh yeah, this gets everyone. It's such a common budget buster. Hotel gift shops often use what's called dynamic pricing, and they don't always clearly display the cost. So you grab a bottle of water and suddenly it's $7, $8, even $10 at the register. The easy fix. Just walk off the casino property for a block or two to a CVS, a Walgreens, or an ABC store. You can get the same water for like $1.75. It's a huge difference.
And then there are the fees just baked into your stay, starting with the infamous resort fees.
Yes, resort fees. Those mandatory charges that Vegas hotels pretty much pioneered. They let them advertise a lower room rate up front, then slack on this extra fee, which can be really high. Now, there's a push for more transparency, and maybe in 2025, the rules will force them to include it in the advertised price, but for now, they're usually mandatory and add a lot to your bill.
And don't forget the mini bars, those high-tech ones that charge you if you even look at them funny.
Be so careful with those. They're often sensor equipped. I mean, people call them censored sometimes, but it's really about the sensors. I know people who've been charged like 20 bucks just for moving a little bottle of vodka to make room for their own water bottle. Just touching or moving an item, even if you don't drink it, can trigger an immediate charge on your room bill. It's wild.
Okay, third category, kickbacks and diversion. How do people like taxi drivers or rideshare drivers get involved in steering you places?
Well, the old trick was taxi drivers taking the scenic route to run up the meter, though if you're coming from the airport, you should definitely insist on the fixed rate. The more common thing now for both taxis and ride shares is drivers suggesting a better nightclub or maybe a specific marijuana dispensary. Often, they're not recommending it because it's genuinely better for you. They're recommending it because they get a kickback, a commission for bringing customers to that specific place.
And what about those nightclub promoters you see handing out flyers on the strip?
So, those promoters, their job is to get people into the club. They usually get paid by the club for doing that, and often they can get you in for free or maybe reduced cover. If a promoter on the street tries to make you pay them for a ticket right there, that's a red flag. You might be paying them for something that's actually free or for a ticket that won't even work at the door. Never pay a promoter directly on the street.
Got it. And the final category, personal information and identity theft. This one feels a bit sneakier.
It definitely can be. For example, be really wary of flyers slid under your hotel room door advertising local restaurants, especially pizza places. The police actually advise against calling the numbers on those flyers. They're often fronts for credit card phishing scams. They're not really selling food. They're just trying to get your credit card details.
Wow. Okay. And the final insult, paying way too much just to take a picture.
Yeah, the costume characters, Spider-Man, the showgirls, sometimes models, they'll happily pose for a picture with you. But then afterwards, they can get really aggressive about demanding a tip, and not just $1 or two. We're talking $20, maybe even $50, and they never mentioned a price beforehand. So the simple advice is, if you want a photo, always ask them how much before you take the picture. And similarly, if someone at an information booth offers you free show tickets or some other gift, it almost always involves sitting through a really high-pressure 90-minute timeshare presentation. Just be aware of the trade-off.
Okay, we've covered a lot on crime and scams, but we need to shift focus for a moment to the environment itself. That desert heat. It's a serious risk people often underestimate, isn't it?
It really is. Heat is actually one of the leading weather-related killers in the U.S., believe it or not. Visitors, especially from cooler climates, often don't realize how quickly those temperatures can climb or how the dry air kind of tricks you into not realizing how much fluid you're losing through sweat.
And who needs to be particularly careful?
Well, certain groups are more vulnerable. Young kids, older adults, pregnant women, and anyone with chronic health conditions. But honestly, walking the strip when it's 110 degrees Fahrenheit, that's a huge stress on anyone's body, no matter how fit you think you are.
So what are the basic safety steps to avoid heat emergencies?
It's pretty straightforward, but crucial. Try to avoid being outdoors during the hottest part of the day, which is usually mid-afternoon. Wear light-colored, loose-fitting clothes, and definitely wear a hat. And drink fluids constantly, lots of cool water or electrolyte drinks. And this is important. You really need to limit caffeine and alcohol. Both actually make you more dehydrated and mess with your body's ability to cool itself down.
And if someone does start to feel sick from the heat, how can we tell the difference between something like heat exhaustion and the really dangerous heat stroke?
Yeah, knowing the difference is critical. With heat exhaustion, the person will likely be sweating heavily, their skin might feel cool and pale or clammy, they might feel dizzy or have a weak pulse. If that happens, get them into a cool place immediately, have them lie down, and sip water slowly. Heat stroke, though, that's a life-threatening emergency. The key signs are a very high body temperature, and crucially, their skin will be hot, red, but dry. They've actually stopped sweating. They'll also likely be confused or lose consciousness. If you suspect heat stroke, don't hesitate. Call 911 immediately. It needs urgent medical attention.
Okay, good distinction.
Yeah.
And beyond the heat, any other sort of public health things people should be aware of?
Well, just briefly, it's worth noting that the local health authority, the SNHD, has recently put out advisories about some cases of travel-associated Legionella disease linked to hotels in the county. It's just a reminder that, basic public health stuff is always something to keep in the back of your mind when you travel anywhere.
So putting this all together, this deep dive really gives us a clearer picture, doesn't it? Vegas seems generally safe in those main tourist zones because of the heavy security presence. But it absolutely demands basic street smarts and being vigilant against two main things: opportunistic crime, like those pickpockets near busy intersections, and just not falling for the sheer number of financial hustles.
Exactly. Your own vigilance is probably your best defense. You need to guard yourself not just against the outright criminals trying to take your stuff, but also against some of the, let's call them industry practices, the perfectly legal things designed to maximize profit while you're maybe distracted by all the lights and noise.
So what's the big takeaway here? When you're planning your trip, yeah, you think about locking your door and watching your wallet. But maybe, just maybe, the biggest consistent drain on tourists' money year after year isn't the pickpocket, but the legally sanctioned stuff. The sky-high resort fees, the $10 water bottles, those aggressive tipping prompts that pop up everywhere now.
That really brings up a final thought for you, the listener, doesn't it? When you're booking that next Vegas trip, beyond just planning your fun budget, what specific steps could you take even before you leave home to sort of financially insulate yourself from those, let's call them the city's legally mandated hustles? Think about it. How do you budget not just for the fun, but budget for evading the extra costs? Something to chew on.